Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wednesday edition on my YouTube channel. As you guys know, if you are past listeners, this is the day I give out my starts and sits for week 3 in fantasy football. I don't really got to explain too much. I'm sure you can assume what I'm about to talk about, even if you're a first-time listener. So why don't I just go ahead and dive into my top starts and sits for the upcoming weekend of football. Of course, we're going to start with the quarterback position, the most important position in football. Let's go ahead and reveal it. Yeah, my top 2 starts for this week. I got Matthew Stafford against the Bucs. The Bucs secondary, they're missing Sean Murphy-Bunting right now. Teams have been able to pass the ball on them this year. The Bucs have one of the best, if not the best, rushing defense in the league. So they're probably going to have to lean heavily on Matthew Stafford's arm. Sean Murphy-Bunting works the slot, and I can see Cooper Kupp continuing his success this week. I can see another guy having a good game this week, which I'll talk about, spoiler alert. But overall, I just think Matthew Stafford is playing really well right now with Sean McVay, and then they're just going against a defense that not only has been giving up some yardage into the quarterback position, but they are facing the high potent Rams offense as well. So this Rams-Bucs matchup this weekend, as much as each team has a good pieces on their defense, this could easily be a shootout type of matchup that we could see go on during Sunday. My other start is Ryan Tannehill against the Colts. The Colts have been torched to start this season. Their secondary was started with Russell Wilson, continued with Matthew Stafford last week, and it's likely we could see that continue with Ryan Tannehill in week 3. Per the practice report this week, Xavier Rhodes did not practice today, so it's likely the Colts will be without their second best cornerback on the roster. We'll have to see how the injury report progresses on that. But regardless, you're talking about a team that has not stopped the nosebleed at all to start the season. Teams have been able to dice them up through the air and get touchdowns. So I could see Ryan Tannehill having that blow up type of performance with Julio and AJ Brown this week. And plus, he does give you that little bit of a rushing floor as a quarterback. So I think Ryan Tannehill is a good start. In terms of my sits, I can sit Joe Burrow against the Steelers this week. I was definitely wrong on Joe last week. I apologize. I thought he could play a lot better than against that Bears defense, but I discounted how great that defensive front 7 is for the Bears, and he's going against a really good front 7 in Pittsburgh. So he's likely going to be running for his life once again, and I can see Joe having his struggles against this Pittsburgh defense. I don't see him putting up a lot of yards against the defense. So if you have Joe Burrow, I would maybe look for another option to play this week. And then my other sit as well is Baker Mayfield against the Bears. Just kind of similar, right? We saw Joe Burrow struggle against the Bears. I could see that continuing with Baker Mayfield this week, where maybe they're going to rely on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in that rushing attack. Jarvis Landry's out for the next 3 weeks. I believe Odell maybe returned to practice this morning. We'll have to see if he's able to play this week. Now, if Odell plays, that does help boost up Baker Mayfield's value this week. But if he's out, there'll be no OBJ, there'll be no Jarvis Landry, so he doesn't have his top 2 weapons in the passing attack. So I could see a very down game for Baker. So he's another guy I would consider other options if you can. So again, my 2 starts, Matthew Stafford and Ryan Tannehill, and my 2 sits are Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield. Keeping this moving to my running back position starts. I'm going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs against the Chargers. I know the last time we remember him is he had that fumble against the Ravens, which helped the Baltimore upset the Chiefs on Sunday night. But I think he's set to have a bounce back type of performance. I think they're going to keep him involved in this offense to help him regain any confidence that he maybe lost from that moment in last week. And on top of that too, the Chargers defense has been getting ran on to start the season. We saw what Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott did to him last week. Antonio Gibson had a very good solid game against them in week 1. So I think there's a potential for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to get to that 100-yard scrimmage yards on the day and maybe get a touchdown or 2. And I think he can rebound for his fantasy owners. And I just really like his matchup this week. So I think CEH is a good play for week 3. My other start it's just going to be dependent on who plays, right? Obviously, Josh Jacobs missed last week. I think Gruden came out yesterday and said he's questionable for this week, so we'll have to see. Regardless of who it is, if Josh Jacobs doesn't play, then I think Kenyon Drake would be a good play. I think they got a good matchup against the Dolphins, who also have been giving up a lot of yards on the ground to start the season. And then on top of that, if Josh Jacobs does not play, this will be kind of a slightly revenge game. I know the Dolphins were Drake's original first team, and then he went to the Cardinals, then the Raiders. But still, you kind of have that revenge game factor with Kenyon Drake. But so if Josh Jacobs is out, I would definitely consider sliding Drake into your lineup. And then same thing, if Jacobs gets the thumbs up, he is good to go this week. Then I do think Josh Jacobs is going to be a one heck of a play against the Dolphins, and especially. One thing to add too, I'm going to talk about this later as well. The Tua is out this week with his fractured ribs. So if the Raiders end up beating up on this Dolphins team by the second quarter, they're probably going to start relying on the rushing attack to close out the game. So that's going to help, Josh Jacobs or Kenyon Drake, whoever the lead back is going to be this Sunday. So whatever you do, just watch the injury reports on Jacobs this week. And then my sit is Darrell Henderson / Sony Michel against the Bucs. Kind of a similar scenario there, depending on the injury, but it doesn't matter. I don't think you should play either of them. Darrell Henderson is dealing with a rib cartilage injury. His status is up in air, but even if he gets the good to go, he's going to be less than 100% going against, like I said, arguably the best defensive front that stops the run in the NFL right now. So I don't like his matchup. He's banged up. So if you got Darrell Henderson, I would avoid him. I know people probably picked up Sony Michel in anticipation that Henderson may have to miss some time with his rib injury. But even if you picked him up, or if you had him as a handcuff to Darrell Henderson, I don't think this is a great matchup to play him. If you got any of those Rams running backs, I would just avoid them this week and revisit their situations in week 4. My other sit of the week is Damien Harris against the Saints. The reason why I think this is not a great matchup for Damien Harris is the Saints have been pretty solid to start the season against the run. They actually have a strong history of being one of the better run defenses in the league. And I think it did. I think somebody broke it last year, but dude, they went on like a 20 to 30 game streak in the last like 2 to 3 seasons where they didn't allow a single 100-yard rusher. So I'm factoring in their history. I'm factoring in, I think they've only given up, like, if I remember my research from last night, about 70 yards a game to start the season, rushing yards total from a team as a rushing defense. So if you got Damien Harris, I would definitely consider putting him on your bench. I know he looked good. I really like that grown man run that he got that touchdown last week. Trust me, he was in my lineup and I played him. But I think this is just not a good matchup for him this week. So if you can, I would avoid playing Damien Harris in week 3. So again, my running back starts Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus the Chargers. And then depending on health, either Josh Jacobs or Kenyon Drake against the Dolphins. And then my sit doesn't matter on health. I think you should sit them both, even if they're both active. Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel against the Bucs, as well as I would sit Damien Harris against the Saints. And I'm going to go ahead and move into the wide receiver starts and sits. My top wide receiver start of the week is Devante Smith against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys defense has just been kind of struggling here to contain the pass. I think you're going to be able to see a good game out of Devante Smith. And I think also, I think the Cowboys can turn this game. Their offense is really good. And I think they can turn this into a shootout type of game where if they can jump out to a big lead, the Eagles are going to have to depend on the pass. And I think that's where you're going to see Devante Smith get a lot of targets this week. And I think he's going to get it around 100 yards and maybe even a touchdown on that Monday night matchup against the Cowboys. And then my other start of the week is Robert Woods against the Bucs. So yeah, technically I guess I could have put Cooper Kupp there, but obviously Cooper Kupp's balling right now. You're going to play him. I didn't feel like I had to list him, but people might be debating on, should I play Robert Woods? He has not really done much this season. Well, we know how quarterbacks work. They know they want to get their wide receivers involved so they don't feel left out, right? So I think we're going to see Robert Woods kind of get a focus in this game where he's going to see more targets than he has seen over the last 2 weeks. I think maybe because of how well Cooper Kupp has played, you maybe see the Bucs secondary kind of shift coverage his way. And I think that's going to open up things for Woods. I think he's going to have, like I said, I think he's going to have a larger role than what we have seen out of him over the past the first 2 weeks of the season. So I see I want to call it a breakout performance, but his best game so far this year for Robert Woods. I think he's going to have a good game. And like I mentioned too with the Matthew Stafford play, I could see this Rams-Bucs game getting into a shootout where there's going to be a lot of fantasy points going on. So I'm sure any owners of any Rams or Bucs this week is going to love to hear that. And then moving on to my sits, Brandin Cooks against the Panthers on the Thursday night matchup. I don't like the matchup just because the Panthers defense has been playing really great this week. And then, as people probably already know, Tyrod Taylor is in place on IR. Their starting quarterback for Houston this week is going to be Davis Mills on a short week. I'm not sure he's gotten much work with Brandin Cooks from the training camp, because during training camp, Tyrod Taylor was getting all the reps with the starters. So you're talking about the lack of chemistry between a rookie quarterback and Brandin Cooks. You're talking about a good defense that they're going against, and it's just a short week. So I just don't see how Brandin Cooks could have a great game unless Davis Mills absolutely just force feeds the targets to him throughout the matchup. But I think I could see a really, I wouldn't say a really bad game, just a down game for Brandin Cooks, just because of the lack of chemistry between him and the new Houston starting quarterback. My other sit, I'm kind of pulling this from last week's sits on my wide receiver. Will Fuller has been back into the facility. The expectation is Will Fuller is going to play this week. So as I mentioned last week, we don't know how this is going to work between Jaylen Waddle, Devante Parker, and Will Fuller. So that was a situation I wanted to see play out with Tua at quarterback. As I mentioned, Tua is out this week, and he might be out for multiple weeks with this fractured rib. So I definitely don't want to depend on those wide receivers with Jacoby Brissett. I'm going to want to see that situation play out. So let this situation with the Miami wide receivers play out while we see when Tua will be able to make his return. And then you can see if you want to insert one of those guys into your lineup in the future. And then just kind of caveat, Raiders were one of my top 5 streamable defenses in my video from last night. If you have not watched that video, please go watch that after this one. But I want to go ahead and make a note. Now that Tua has been officially ruled out, I would actually move the Raiders up to my number 2 streamable defense this week from the list that I gave out. I don't want to give out the other defenses I named because I want you to go watch that video if you have not yet. So again, my wide receiver starts Devante Smith against the Cowboys and Robert Woods against the Bucs. And my sit, Brandin Cooks against the Panthers, and then the trio of wide receivers from the Dolphins against the Raiders this week. And then moving on to the last position for my starts and sits, my start is Dallas Goedert against the Cowboys. Similar to Devante Smith, I think I could see the Eagles having to depend on the pass a lot more in this matchup against the Cowboys. We saw Rob Gronkowski light up this Cowboys defense in week 1. Jared Cook was my start last week. Now, he didn't get the numbers because he did score a touchdown, but there was a penalty called. So if that penalty doesn't get called, my start on Jared Cook really hits last week. So I think that can the tight end success against the Cowboys can continue for Dallas Goedert. And he usually does kind of show up in these Cowboys-Eagles matchups and gets some points and gets some yardage. And I know we had that big long touchdown. I want to say maybe his rookie year. I don't think it was last year. The one on my memories hit me right now with. So I think Dallas Goedert's a good play in week 3. My other start is Gerald Everett against the Vikings. We saw Max Williams. Maybe you don't know who that guy is, but he's a tight end for the Cardinals who had 7 catches, I think, for 70 yards against the Vikings defense. And so I'm kind of leaning on that, where I think maybe Gerald Everett can carry over that tight end success against the Vikings defense. Obviously, the Vikings defense are going to do everything that they can to contain DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett throughout the game. So with the focus on those two wide receivers, I also think this is going to open up things for Gerald where he can have a good, solid game. And I think Gerald Everett is a sneaky play at the tight end position this week. Now my sit is going to be Logan Thomas against the Bills. The Bills' defense right now is playing at a very high level. And then on top of that, they have Matt Milano, who's really good in coverage, who has this Bills defense has slowed down some tight ends so far. Now, I know the Steelers really don't have a much of a fantasy tight end, but last week they were indeed able to keep Mike Gesicki in check. He was one of my sits last week, so I'm carrying kind of over that where the Bills have been pretty good. As far as a defense, where I think Logan Thomas, if you have another option, I would consider playing them. Now, I know Logan Thomas is kind of like that, that tight end one in fantasy. So if you do have to play him, I understand it. I just would temper your expectations where if he has a bad game, it's just the matchup wasn't there for you this week. But if you happen to have another option, I would definitely consider sitting Logan Thomas this week. My other sit is that tight end duo up in New England, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith against the Saints. This is nothing really, honestly, because of the Saints defense. This is just because we don't know what's going on with this New England passing attack. There is no clear, you can throw the wide receivers into this conversation. Right now, there is no clear cut, like that's the top guy in their passing attack. We have no clue. We don't know if it's Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Harry's hurt or something. It doesn't matter. Throw him out of the conversation. I don't even know why I brought him up. But Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, they haven't really done anything. Like, I thought at least one of them would emerge by now, or it would be like a Hunter Henry week, then a Jonnu Smith week. But like, it's been meh. There's nothing much that you have been getting out of them. I would look elsewhere. Like, I think you can have better options than the New England tight ends right now. So again, my tight end starts right now: Dallas Goedert against the Cowboys, Gerald Everett against the Vikings, and then my sit is Logan Thomas against the Bills, and then Hunter Henry / Jonnu Smith against the Saints. So yeah, that is my starts and sits for week 3 of fantasy football. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button. If you didn't like this video, just ignore it like you never watched it and don't tell anybody. But if you did like the video, not only hit like, but go tell a friend to go check out my channel so they can also get all the great fantasy football advice. And I don't care if they're playing in your fantasy football league. Send them my way. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. And then, as always, I like to promote the Prospect Encyclopedia. It's great to have for the NFL season. Go to prospectencyclopedia.com to check that out. You can get the entire PDF for only $15. You can get individual NFL team PDFs for only $1. You can even download the Bucs section, which I wrote for free. Check it out, and if you want to make the full purchase, you can go ahead and do that. Just go to prospectencyclopedia.com. Other than that, if you guys have any fantasy football related questions, hit the comments. I've been replying to comments on my YouTube videos. Hit me up on Twitter at CodyTalksNFL if you have any questions about fantasy football. Other than that, I will be back on Saturday for my normal week 3 NFL preview video. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you then.